Hey there. Tonight, we're going to explore something remarkable: the hidden meanings, clever designs, and secret purposes lurking in everyday objects you pass without a second thought. Each one revealing how the ordinary becomes extraordinary once you know where to look. If you've heard another theory, feel free to share in the comments section. We love discovering new pieces of the story. Do consider tapping or clicking on the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if this sparked a little calm or curiosity. No pressure, only if your finger feels like doing it. Now settle into comfort, let your mind and body relax, and let's explore tonight's topic together. 1. The arrow in the FedEx logo isn't decoration. It's a hidden arrow between the E and X, symbolizing precision and forward motion. Most people look at this logo dozens of times without ever noticing the negative space that forms a perfect arrow pointing right. According to the Smithsonian Archives, the design was created in 1994 by Lyndon Leader, who spent months refining the spacing between letters to make the arrow appear naturally. The genius lies in its subtlety. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, yet it never dominates the design. The arrow represents speed, accuracy, and forward momentum, core values for a shipping company. It's become one of the most celebrated examples of hidden meaning in corporate branding. What makes it truly remarkable is that the arrow works in every weight and variation of the FedEx wordmark, a testament to meticulous design thinking. It's a daily reminder that sometimes the most powerful messages are the ones hiding in plain sight. 2. The 57 varieties printed on Heinz ketchup bottles had no relation to the actual number of products. Henry Heinz chose it simply because he thought 57 sounded lucky and catchy. In 1896, while riding an elevated train in New York City, Heinz saw an advertisement for 21 styles of shoes and was struck by the appeal of using a number in branding. At the time, his company was already producing more than 60 products, but he believed the number 5 held special significance for him, and 7 was his wife's lucky number. So he combined them into 57, printed it on every bottle, and never looked back. The number became so iconic that it's remained on Heinz products for over a century, even as the company expanded to thousands of varieties. Marketing historians at the Heinz Corporate Archives note that this was one of the earliest examples of numerical branding in American business. It's pure marketing genius, a meaningless number that became synonymous with quality and tradition through sheer repetition and confidence. 3. The Statue of Liberty's torch once served as an unofficial lighthouse for ships entering New York Harbor until 1902, shining a weak but symbolic light visible nearly 24 miles out. When the statue was dedicated in 1886, engineers installed electric arc lamps in the torch, making it one of the first electrically lit monuments in America. The National Park Service records show that while the light was never bright enough to serve as an effective navigational aid, sailors reported seeing its glow from great distances on clear nights. The symbolic power was always stronger than the practical function, Lady Liberty literally illuminating the path to freedom for immigrants arriving by sea. By 1902, the lighthouse function was officially abandoned, and the statue was transferred from the Lighthouse Board to the War Department. Today's torch, installed during the 1980s restoration, is covered in 24-karat gold leaf and illuminated by floodlights from below, creating a beacon that's more symbol than utility, just as it always was. 4. The Amazon logo's arrow points from A to Z, representing the company's goal to sell everything, literally from A to Z. But there's a second hidden meaning most people miss. The arrow also forms a smile, suggesting customer satisfaction and the pleasant experience of shopping on the platform. This dual-purpose design, created in 2000, transformed Amazon's branding from a simple text logo to one that communicated both scope and sentiment. According to the Branding Museum collection, the logo was refined multiple times to ensure the arrow smile worked at every scale, from tiny mobile screens to massive billboards. What started as an online bookstore needed a visual identity that could represent infinite expansion. The curve of the arrow is deliberately optimistic, rising slightly as it moves from left to right, implying progress and forward momentum. It's remarkable how two simple curved lines can communicate ambition, happiness, and comprehensiveness all at once. Today, that arrow is recognized worldwide, a testament to design that works on multiple levels simultaneously. 5. The peace symbol isn't religious or ancient. It was designed in 1958 for nuclear disarmament, combining the semaphore letters N and D. British artist Gerald Holtham created it for the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, and the symbol first appeared on banners during a march from London to Aldermaston. The British Museum's cultural archives document how Holtham combined the semaphore positions for N, flags held down at angles, and D, one flag straight up, one straight down, to create a circle with 3 lines. He later said the symbol also represented a human figure in despair, with arms stretched downward. What began as a specific protest against nuclear weapons quickly became the universal symbol for peace movements worldwide. By the 1960s, it had been adopted by anti-war protesters in America and became inseparable from counterculture movements. The elegance of its design, simple, symmetrical, and easy to reproduce, allowed it to spread rapidly across continents and causes, becoming one of the most widely recognized symbols in human history. 6. The small pocket inside your jeans wasn't for coins, but for pocket watches, a 19th century feature Levi's kept for tradition. When Levi Strauss & Company first started making denim work pants in the 1870s, pocket watches were essential tools for railroad workers, miners, and laborers who needed to track time precisely. According to the Levi Strauss & Company archives, this tiny pocket was originally called a watch pocket, and it kept expensive timepieces safe from damage during physical labor. As wristwatches became popular in the early 20th century, the watch pocket became functionally obsolete, yet Levi's never removed it. Today, people use it for coins, lighters, guitar picks, or simply leave it empty, but it remains an authentic historical detail on every pair of Levi's jeans. The fact that this feature has survived for over 150 years, long past its original purpose, shows how design elements can transcend their function to become tradition. It's a tiny time capsule sewn into modern clothing, connecting today's wearers to the working-class roots of denim. 7. The blue part of a pencil eraser doesn't remove ink. It's a coarser side meant to erase deeper pencil marks on thicker paper. This is one of the most persistent misconceptions in stationery. The MIT Department of Materials explains that the pink side is softer rubber designed for standard paper, while the blue side contains more pumice and abrasive materials. It was engineered for artists and drafters who worked on heavyweight drawing paper, where standard erasers wouldn't penetrate deeply enough to remove graphite. When people try using the blue side on thin notebook paper, it often tears the surface, which led to the myth that it was meant for ink. In reality, no rubber eraser can effectively remove most inks without damaging paper, because ink penetrates the fibers while pencil graphite sits on the surface. The blue side's roughness makes it feel different, which probably contributed to the assumption it had a special purpose. It's a perfect example of how a specialized tool becomes misunderstood when it's used outside its intended context. 8. The 8 in the 8 ball of billiards was chosen because black die was the most visible contrast against the white cue ball. The American Pool Association's history notes that when billiards transitioned from a game played exclusively with 3 balls to numbered pool games in the early 20th century, manufacturers needed to create easily distinguishable balls. The solid black 8 ball became the game's focal point in 8-ball pool, where sinking it wins the game, but doing so prematurely loses it. The number 8 was assigned somewhat arbitrarily, becoming significant through the game's rules rather than any inherent meaning. The high contrast between black and white made gameplay clearer for players and spectators. Over time, the 8-ball transcended billiards to become a cultural symbol, appearing in tattoos, magic 8-ball toys, and metaphors about luck and fate. The phrase, "behind the 8-ball," meaning in a difficult position, comes from situations where the cue ball ends up blocked by the 8-ball, limiting shot options. That simple black sphere with a white number became one of gaming's most recognizable icons through nothing more than practical color contrast decisions. 9. The lines in a red solo cup aren't just design, they mark measurement levels. 1 Oz for liquor, 5 Oz for wine, and 12 Oz for beer. This clever feature was documented by the Smithsonian Institution Food History Center, though the Solo Cup company has never officially confirmed these measurements were intentional. The bottom line sits at approximately 1 ounce from the base, perfect for a standard shot. The middle line marks 5 ounces, a typical wine serving. The top line indicates 12 ounces, a standard beer pour. Whether this was deliberate engineering or fortunate coincidence, it's become part of American party culture folklore. The red Solo Cup itself is an icon, durable, stackable, affordable, and ubiquitous at gatherings from college parties to backyard barbecues. The ridged texture provides grip, the opaque plastic hides contents, and the tapered design allows cups to nest efficiently for shipping. What appears to be a simple disposable cup is actually a minor masterpiece of consumer product design, optimized for its purpose in ways most users never consciously notice. 10. The Y shape in the Toyota logo contains all 3 letters, T, O, and Y, hidden within the overlapping ovals. According to Toyota Motor Archives, the logo was designed in 1989 to represent multiple meanings simultaneously. The inner overlapping ovals symbolize the heart of the customer and the heart of the company, merging in mutual trust and understanding. The outer oval represents the world embracing Toyota's products. But look closely and you'll see how the negative space and the ovals themselves form a stylized T, while the overall composition can be read as containing all 3 letters of toy. When viewed creatively, the logo works in any color and at any scale, from tiny key fobs to massive dealership signs. It's been called one of the most sophisticated automotive logos ever designed because it balances abstract symbolism with hidden letter forms. Most drivers see it thousands of times without recognizing the embedded typography. It's a masterclass in multi-layered design, functional, meaningful, and subtly complex all at once. 11. The hole in a pen cap isn't a design flaw. It's a life-saving feature that prevents suffocation if swallowed. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission implemented regulations requiring ventilated pen caps after several children died from choking incidents in the 1980s and 1990s. When a pen cap becomes lodged in someone's throat, the small hole allows air to continue flowing to the lungs, buying precious time for emergency intervention. This safety feature became an international standard adopted by manufacturers worldwide. The hole is carefully engineered to be large enough to permit airflow, but small enough that it doesn't affect the cap's primary function of preventing the ink from drying out. BIC, one of the largest pen manufacturers, estimates this simple modification has prevented countless tragedies, particularly among children who habitually chew on pen caps. It's a reminder that thoughtful design considers not just intended use, but also potential misuse. Every pen cap with that tiny hole represents safety engineering at its most elegant, invisible, until you know what you're looking at, yet potentially life-saving. 12. The arrow in the FedEx logo isn't the only hidden message in corporate design. The Baskin-Robbins logo hides the number 31 in pink, representing their original 31 ice cream flavors. The Museum of Brands in London highlights this as one of the cleverest uses of negative space in food branding. When the company rebranded in 2005, designers integrated the number into the B and R by coloring portions of these letters pink while leaving the rest blue. The 31 refers to Baskin-Robbins' founding concept, offering a different flavor for every day of the month. Most people see the logo dozens of times without consciously noticing the embedded number, yet once pointed out, it becomes impossible to miss. This type of hidden design element creates a moment of discovery for customers, building a deeper connection with the brand. The pink and blue color scheme also evokes ice cream shop aesthetics, fun, playful, and welcoming. It's marketing that rewards attention, turning casual observers into engaged participants once they spot the hidden detail. 13. The dots and dashes around your car's windshield edges aren't decorative. They're frits that protect the glass from UV and heat expansion. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, these black ceramic paint dots serve multiple engineering purposes. They create a rough surface that helps adhesive bond more securely between the glass and the frame. They also provide a graduated transition from transparent glass to the black border, preventing optical distortion that would occur with a sharp edge. Most importantly, the frits absorb and distribute heat more evenly, preventing thermal stress that could crack the windshield. During manufacturing, windshields are heated to extreme temperatures, and without frits, the edges would heat and cool at different rates than the center, causing weakness. The dots gradually decrease in size as they move toward the center, creating an aesthetically pleasing fade while serving a critical structural purpose. It's functional design that looks intentional, but whose true purpose remains invisible to most drivers who see it every day. 14. The Apple logo's bite was intentional, so people wouldn't mistake it for a cherry. When designer Rob Janoff created the logo in 1977, he included a bite mark to provide scale and ensure the apple was immediately recognizable as an apple, not a cherry or tomato. The Apple Industrial Design Group's archives show that Janoff presented several versions, and Steve Jobs selected the one with the bite. There's a popular myth that it's a reference to Alan Turing or the biblical forbidden fruit, but Janoff himself has stated it was purely practical. The bite also creates visual interest and provides a convenient place to break the apple's outline, making it more dynamic than a simple silhouette. Originally rendered in rainbow stripes to show off the Apple II's color display capabilities, it was simplified to monochrome in 1998 and has remained elegantly minimal ever since. Today, it's one of the most valuable logos in the world, worth billions in brand recognition. That simple bite mark transformed a common fruit into an unforgettable icon. 15. The number 13 on the dollar bill's eagle feathers, arrows, and olive leaves represents the 13 original colonies, a pattern repeated 13 times throughout the note. The U.S. Treasury Archives reveal this was deliberate symbolism honoring America's founding. The eagle has 13 tail feathers, holds 13 arrows, and grasps 13 olives on 13 leaves. Above the eagle, 13 stars burst through clouds. The shield on the eagle's chest has 13 stripes. The pyramid on the reverse has 13 levels. Even the Latin phrases contain 13 letters. This obsessive repetition of 13 wasn't accidental. It was coded into the currency to honor the original states that formed the Union. Most people handle dollar bills countless times without ever counting these elements or recognizing the pattern. The consistency of this symbolism across every detail shows how deeply the founders wanted to embed historical memory into everyday objects. It's American history literally passing through your hands, encoded in imagery most people never consciously examine. The dollar bill is essentially a portable monument to the revolution, disguised as currency. 16. The B in Bluetooth's logo is a combination of two ancient Nordic runes, Hegel, H, and Bjarkan, B, representing King Harald Bluetooth. According to IEE archives, the technology was named after the 10th century Danish king who united Scandinavia, just as Bluetooth technology unites devices. King Harald was known for his ability to bring together warring factions, making him a fitting symbol for a wireless protocol designed to connect different types of electronics. The logo merges the runic symbols for H and B, Harald Bluetooth's initials, into a single blue mark. The engineers at Ericsson who developed the standard in the 1990s chose this name as a temporary placeholder during development, but it stuck because it perfectly captured the technology's purpose. Most people never question why their wireless connection is named after a Viking king or why the logo looks like a strange letter B with extra angles. It's a reminder that even cutting-edge technology can honor ancient history, connecting medieval Scandinavia to modern smartphones through clever naming and design. 17. Most fire hydrants in U.S. cities are color-coded to show water flow rate. Blue is the strongest, red the weakest. The American Water Works Association established this system to help firefighters quickly assess which hydrants will deliver the water volume they need during emergencies. Blue or green indicates 1,500 gallons per minute or more, providing strong, reliable flow. Orange means 599 gallons per minute, adequate for most fires. Red signals less than 500 gallons per minute, which may be insufficient for large fires. The color appears on the hydrant's bonnet or body and instantly communicates critical information without requiring firefighters to consult maps or records in high-pressure situations. Some jurisdictions use additional colors or variations, but the basic system remains consistent across most American cities. These colors aren't decorative. They're tactical information that could mean the difference between containing a fire or losing a building. Most people walk past hydrants daily without realizing these colors are a coded language for emergency responders, visible to everyone but meaningful to few. 18. The ridges on dimes and quarters were added to prevent people from shaving off precious metals when coins were made of silver. The U.S. Mint archives document this as a practical anti-counterfeiting measure from the late 18th century. When coins contained their face value in actual silver or gold, criminals would shave thin layers off the edges, collect the precious metal, and spend the slightly lighter coins at full value. This practice, called clipping, was rampant and devalued currency. The solution was adding reeded edges, those distinctive ridges that make it immediately obvious if anyone has tampered with the coin's edge. Once the ridges were removed or damaged, the coin became suspect. Even though USA coins haven't contained precious metals since 1964, when they switched to copper-nickel alloys, the ridges remain as a legacy feature. Pennies and nickels, which never contained enough valuable metal to make clipping profitable, have always had smooth edges. Those tiny ridges you feel when handling change are echoes of a time when your pocket money was actual silver. 19. Subway tiles were first used in New York's 1904 subway because their glossy white finish made underground stations appear cleaner and brighter. According to the New York Transit Museum, architects chose these simple 3 by 6 inch ceramic rectangles for practical reasons in an era before modern lighting. The glazed surface reflected light more efficiently than brick or stone, making dimly lit platforms feel less oppressive and claustrophobic. The white color suggested cleanliness and hygiene, important considerations for a public space that would be used by millions. The tiles were also practical. They could be easily cleaned and didn't show dirt as readily as porous materials. Individual tiles were small enough that if one cracked or broke, it could be replaced without redoing an entire wall. This utilitarian choice became an iconic design element, so synonymous with New York's subway system that subway tile became a style category still popular in kitchens and bathrooms today. What began as practical problem-solving in underground infrastructure became a lasting aesthetic, proving that sometimes the most enduring designs are born from simple necessity. 20. The small hole near a padlock's keyhole isn't decorative. It drains water and allows lubrication to reach the internal springs. The Master Lock Design Department engineered this feature to extend padlock lifespan, particularly for locks used outdoors. When water enters a lock mechanism, it can cause rust that freezes the internal components, rendering the lock useless. The drain hole allows moisture to escape rather than pooling inside. Additionally, when a lock becomes stiff or difficult to turn, you can inject lubricant through this hole to reach the pins and springs without disassembling the entire mechanism. This simple aperture solves two common failure points in padlock design. For locks exposed to weather on storage units, gates, or outdoor sheds, this feature can mean the difference between years of reliable service and a corroded, frozen mechanism. Most people never notice this tiny hole or understand its purpose, assuming it's just part of the lock's aesthetic design. It's another example of thoughtful engineering hiding in plain sight, solving problems before users even know they exist. 21. Airplane windows are round for safety, not style. Square windows once caused deadly pressure cracks in early airliners. In the 1950s, the de Havilland Comet, the world's first commercial jet airliner, suffered catastrophic failures that killed dozens of people. According to Boeing Historical Archives, investigations revealed that square windows created stress concentration points at their corners. At high altitude, the pressure difference between the cabin and the outside air exerts tremendous force on the fuselage. Square corners acted as weak points where microscopic cracks would form and rapidly spread, leading to explosive decompression. Engineers redesigned windows with rounded edges, distributing stress more evenly across the surrounding structure. The curved shape has no corners where stress can accumulate, making it far more resistant to fatigue failures. This discovery revolutionized aircraft design and established principles still used today. Every rounded airplane window you've ever looked through exists because of those tragic early accidents. It's a reminder that sometimes the most important design decisions are the ones that prevent disasters passengers never know they've avoided. 22. Every U.S. highway with an odd number runs north-south, and every even-numbered one runs east-west, a system said in 1926. The U.S. Department of Transportation established this numbering logic to create navigational consistency across the growing highway system. North-south routes received odd numbers, with numbers increasing from west to east, so U.S. Route 1 runs along the east coast, while U.S. Route 1001 runs along the west coast. East-west routes received even numbers, increasing from south to north. U.S. Route 2 runs near the Canadian border, while U.S. Route 90 runs along the southern states. 3-digit numbers indicate auxiliary routes. If the first digit is even, the route connects to the parent highway at both ends. If odd, it connects at only one end. This systematic approach transformed navigation in pre-GPS America, allowing travelers to understand their general direction just from the route number. The interstate highway system later adopted similar logic. Its infrastructure organized by pure mathematical logic, hiding navigational intelligence in plain numbering that most drivers never consciously decode. 23. The color green used for highway signs, Pantone 342, was chosen because human eyes are most sensitive to that shade at high speed. Research by the Federal Highway Administration revealed that this specific hue of green provides maximum legibility and visibility in diverse lighting conditions. Human vision relies on rod and cone cells, with cone cells particularly sensitive to the green portion of the spectrum. At highway speeds, when drivers have only seconds to read signs, this wavelength allows for faster recognition and processing. The color also contrasts effectively with white lettering, creating clear readability from significant distances. The choice wasn't aesthetic. It was based on optical biology and testing with thousands of drivers in varying conditions. Different sign colors serve specific purposes: blue for services, brown for recreation, orange for construction, yellow for warnings. Each color was selected for psychological and physiological reasons related to how humans perceive and react to color at speed. Those green signs flashing past on the interstate represent decades of research into human perception, reduced to a simple color choice most people assume is arbitrary. 24. The metal rivets on jeans aren't decorative. They reinforce stress points where fabric tears easily. When Levi Strauss & Co. patented the first riveted pants in 1873, it solved a major problem for workers whose pants constantly ripped at the pockets from carrying heavy tools. Jacob Davis, a tailor, had the idea to place copper rivets at points of strain, pocket, corners, the base of the fly, and other high-stress areas. According to Levi Strauss & Co. archives, these rivets distribute tension across a wider area, preventing the fabric from tearing along a single weak line. The innovation was so successful that riveted pants became the gold standard for workwear, eventually evolving into modern jeans. Today, even fashion-focused denim includes rivets, though many wearers never experience the kind of stress these reinforcements were designed to handle. Some modern jeans use rivets that are partially decorative, stamped with brand logos, or made from brass for aesthetics. But the original function remains. Those small metal dots are structural engineering on clothing, preventing failure at predictable weak points. They're tiny anchors holding your pants together under stress you may never notice. 25. The iPhone's default clock icon isn't static. It actually shows the real time with moving hands. According to Apple Human Interface Guidelines, this is one of the few iOS app icons that updates dynamically. Most app icons are static images, but the clock icon displays the current time accurate to the minute, with moving hour and minute hands that sweep in real time. This small detail requires additional coding and system resources, but Apple included it to demonstrate the device's capability and provide genuine utility. Users can glance at their home screen and see the time without opening the clock app. The second hand doesn't move because that would require constant screen updates, draining battery unnecessarily. The feature has been present since the first iPhone in 2007, but many longtime users have never consciously noticed that the icon updates. It's a detail that seems obvious once pointed out, yet remains invisible to casual observation. It exemplifies Apple's attention to detail, adding functionality to something most companies would treat as a static image, simply because they can. 26. The white stripes on a barber pole represent bandages once used by barbers who also performed surgery. The red symbolizes blood, and blue was added in the U.S. to evoke patriotism. The Smithsonian Institution documents that medieval barbers didn't just cut hair, they performed bloodletting, tooth extractions, and minor surgeries. The red and white pole represented their dual role, with red for blood and white for bandages. Some poles included a brass ball at the top representing the basin used to collect blood. As medical practices professionalized and surgeons became a separate profession, barbers retained only the cosmetic services, but kept their distinctive pole as a trade symbol. In America, blue was added, with some scholars suggesting it represented veins, while others claim it was simply patriotic color coordination. The spiraling stripes may have originated from the practice of patients gripping a pole during bloodletting with bandages wrapped around it and hung, to dry, twisting in the wind. Today's barber poles are nostalgic symbols of a profession that once wielded scalpels alongside scissors, their medical history forgotten by most who see them spinning outside modern barbershops. 27. The smell of rain, called petrichor, comes from a soil compound called geosmin, released when raindrops hit dry ground. Humans are so sensitive to it, we can detect it at concentrations as low as 5 parts per trillion. National Geographic explains that geosmin is produced by soil-dwelling bacteria called actinomycetes. When rain hits dry earth, it releases this organic compound into the air, creating that distinctive earthy scent. Our extreme sensitivity to geosmin likely evolved because it helped our ancestors locate water sources in arid environments. The smell often arrives before rain itself, carried on winds preceding a storm, serving as an olfactory early warning system. Interestingly, geosmin is also what gives beets their earthy taste and contributes to the muddy flavor in some freshwater fish. The word petrichor was coined in 1964 by Australian researchers, combining Greek words for stone and the fluid that flows in the veins of the gods. This ancient smell, embedded in human consciousness across cultures, turns out to be bacterial metabolism made airborne by raindrops, detected by one of our most sensitive sensory systems. 28. The hole in a spaghetti spoon isn't just decorative, it measures exactly 1 serving of dry pasta. According to the Culinary Institute of America, the standard circular opening in most spaghetti servers is designed to hold approximately 2 ounces of uncooked pasta when the strands are bundled through it. This equals 1 standard serving per USDA dietary guidelines. The holes also serve the obvious function of allowing water to drain when serving cooked pasta. But the sizing is intentional for portion control. Different manufacturers may vary slightly, but the concept remains consistent across most designs. This clever dual-purpose feature helps home cooks avoid the common problem of preparing far too much pasta. Many people use these spoons for years without realizing they're holding a built-in measuring tool. It's practical design that educates through use. Even if you don't know the whole measures a portion, you naturally learn appropriate serving sizes by using it. The spoon combines straining, serving, and measuring in a single implement, proving that the best kitchen tools often solve multiple problems simultaneously with elegant simplicity. 29. Traffic lights aren't randomly timed. Cities use AI-driven systems to adapt green light durations to real-time congestion. Modern traffic management by the U.S. Department of Transportation employs sensors embedded in roads, cameras analyzing traffic flow, and machine learning algorithms that adjust signal timing throughout the day. These systems detect traffic density, time of day, day of week, weather conditions, and even special events to optimize flow. During rush hour, major corridors receive longer green lights, while side streets get shorter windows. Late at night, when traffic is minimal, the system shifts to longer cycles on main roads to keep vehicles moving efficiently. Some advanced systems can even create green waves, synchronizing multiple lights so that a vehicle traveling at the speed limit encounters mostly green lights. The sensors can detect emergency vehicles and adjust signals to clear their path. What feels like random waiting at red lights is actually orchestrated by algorithms processing thousands of data points. Cities have transformed from fixed mechanical timers to adaptive intelligent networks, constantly optimizing to reduce congestion and emissions, all invisibly managed while you sit drumming your fingers on the steering wheel. 30. Crosswalk buttons in many major U.S. cities don't actually control the lights anymore. They're placebo. Buttons left to give pedestrians a sense of control. According to NYC Dot reports, New York City disabled most of its pedestrian crossing buttons years ago when it installed automatic signal timings. The buttons remain because removing them would be expensive and might confuse pedestrians accustomed to pressing them. The signals now operate on fixed schedules optimized for traffic flow, with walk signals appearing at predetermined intervals regardless of whether anyone presses the button. However, the illusion of control serves an important psychological purpose. Studies show that people waiting at crosswalks feel less frustrated and perceive shorter wait times when they can press a button, even if it does nothing. Some cities maintain functional buttons during late-night hours or on less trafficked streets where pedestrian-activated crossing makes sense. But at major intersections in cities like New York, the button you're pressing is pure theater. It's infrastructure psychology. Sometimes the appearance of agency matters more than actual control, keeping pedestrians calmer while automated systems manage the complex dance of urban traffic flow. 31. The I in iPhone originally stood for Internet, but Steve Jobs later said it also represented individual and innovation. When Apple introduced the iMac in 1998, Jobs explained that the I prefix primarily meant Internet, emphasizing the computer's ability to connect online right out of the box. According to Apple archives, the naming convention stuck and expanded to include iPod, iPhone, and iPad. But as the brand evolved, Jobs retrofitted additional meanings: individual, instruct, inform, and inspire. This semantic expansion allowed Apple to maintain consistent naming while broadening the philosophical implications. The lowercase I became iconic, instantly recognizable as Apple's signature, even before you see the logo. Competitors tried similar prefixes, e-machines, e-reader, but none achieved the same brand recognition. That simple letter transformed from a functional descriptor of Internet connectivity into a symbol of personal technology and innovation. It's branding that evolved in meaning without changing form, accumulating layers of significance over 2 decades. One letter, 5 products, and countless meanings, all hiding in plain sight at the start of names we say dozens of times daily. 32. Those tiny black dots on your microwave door aren't design. They're called mesh screens, preventing radiation leaks while allowing light to pass through. According to the U.S. Department of Energy, microwave ovens use electromagnetic radiation at a wavelength of about 12 centimeters to heat food. The metal mesh embedded in the glass door has holes smaller than this wavelength, creating a barrier that reflects microwaves back into the cooking chamber while allowing shorter wavelength visible light to pass through so you can see your food. This is based on a principle from physics called the Faraday cage effect, where a conductive mesh blocks electromagnetic radiation with wavelengths larger than the holes. The dots appear black because they're typically made of conductive metal or coating. Without this screen, microwaves would leak through the transparent door, potentially causing harm and definitely reducing cooking efficiency. The careful engineering of hole size is critical. Too large and radiation escapes, too small and you can't see inside. It's protective physics masquerading as aesthetic design, keeping you safe while you watch your popcorn pop. 33. The small hole near an airplane window isn't a flaw. It regulates cabin pressure between the inner and outer panes. Airplane windows typically have 3 layers of acrylic, according to FAA safety guidelines. The outer pane withstands the pressure differential between the cabin and the outside air. The middle pane is a fail-safe backup. The inner pane, which passengers see and touch, is mainly for protection and insulation. The tiny hole, called a breather hole or bleed hole, is drilled in the middle pane to allow air pressure to equalize between the cabin and the space between the window layers. This ensures that the outer pane bears most of the stress, while preventing the inner pane from experiencing pressure that might cause it to crack. It also prevents moisture from being trapped between the panes, which would freeze at high altitude and obscure visibility. That little hole does the critical job of managing pressure physics passengers never think about while gazing out at clouds. It's a carefully engineered safety feature that looks like a manufacturing defect to the untrained eye. 34. The indentation on wine bottle bottoms, called a punt, helps control pressure and balance sediment in sparkling wines. The Wine and Spirits Education Trust explains that this concave bottom serves multiple purposes. In champagne and sparkling wines, the punt strengthens the bottle to withstand internal pressure, which can reach 90 pounds per square inch, about 3 times the pressure in a car tire. The curved shape distributes pressure more evenly than a flat bottom would. For aged red wines, the punt provides a space where sediment can collect away from the main body of wine. When pouring, the indentation helps sommeliers cradle the bottle with their thumb, providing better control. The punt also adds structural stability, creating a wider base that's less likely to tip. In manufacturing, it allows bottles to be stacked on production lines more efficiently. Despite these functions, some winemakers use minimal punts, and the feature has become somewhat traditional rather than strictly necessary for all wines. Still, that characteristic indentation represents centuries of glass-blowing evolution, solving practical problems while becoming an expected element of wine bottle design. 35. The CE marking on electronics doesn't stand for consumer electronics. It's short for Conformité Européenne, meaning the device meets EU safety standards. According to the European Commission, this marking is mandatory for products sold in the European Economic Area, covering health, safety, and environmental protection requirements. Manufacturers self-certify that their products comply with applicable EU directives before affixing the mark. The CE letters must follow specific proportions and sizing rules to be official. Importantly, it's not a quality mark, but a declaration of conformity with regulations. Many Americans assume it means consumer electronics or some variation, not realizing it's a French acronym indicating European regulatory compliance. The marking appears on everything from smartphones to toys to medical devices, a ubiquitous symbol most people glance past without understanding its legal significance. For manufacturers, it's a passport to sell across European markets. For consumers, it's supposed to provide assurance of basic safety standards. That simple 2-letter mark represents compliance with potentially hundreds of pages of technical regulations, compressed into a symbol small enough to fit on a phone charger. 36. In Tic Tac containers, the lid's indentation is meant to dispense 1 mint at a time, a feature most users overlook. According to Ferrero R&D archives, the company designed the small oval depression in the lid to catch a single Tic Tac when you tip the container. This allows controlled dispensing without shaking multiple mints into your hand. The opening is precisely sized to release 1 Tic Tac per tilt in most cases, though occasionally 2 slip through. Most people ignore this feature entirely, either pouring several mints into their palm or shaking them directly into their mouth. The container's rattling sound and tactile feedback are also intentionally engineered to create a satisfying sensory experience associated with the brand. The translucent plastic lets you see how many mints remain, while the flip-top lid provides one-handed operation. Every element is carefully considered, from the size that fits pockets to the label placement. But that curved indentation represents the designer's intended interaction method, a small detail that most users have trained themselves to bypass. It's user interface design for candy, largely ignored but still present, waiting for the rare person who uses Tic Tacs exactly as intended. 37. Escalator comb plates, the yellow ridges at the top and bottom, aren't for traction. They prevent objects from getting trapped between moving steps. According to Otis Elevator Company archives, these interlocking teeth align with grooves in the escalator steps, creating a barrier that guides objects away from the dangerous gap where the steps disappear into the mechanism. Without them, shoes, clothing, fingers, and small objects could easily be pulled into the machinery, causing serious injuries. The bright yellow color isn't aesthetic. It's a warning, drawing attention to the transition zone where riders must step on or off. The combs are designed to break away under extreme pressure, preventing greater injury if something does get caught. They're inspected regularly as part of escalator maintenance because worn or damaged comb plates significantly increase safety risks. That distinctive yellow edge represents engineering's attempt to idiot-proof a mechanism that moves thousands of people daily through a space where rotating metal meets stationary floor. Most riders step over them without a second thought, never knowing they're crossing a carefully designed safety boundary. 38. Most car dashboards have a tiny triangle next to the fuel gauge. It points to the side of the car where the fuel cap is located. This feature, documented by SAE International, was introduced as cars became more diverse in their fuel cap placement. In rental cars or borrowed vehicles, this tiny arrow instantly tells drivers which side to pull up to at the gas pump, saving the embarrassment of parking on the wrong side and having to reposition. The symbol is part of the ISO standardized iconography for vehicle instrumentation, though not all manufacturers implemented it until the late 1990s and early 2000s. Some older vehicles lack this feature entirely, and drivers of those cars typically memorize their fuel cap location. The arrow is deliberately small and understated, providing information without cluttering the dashboard design. It's especially useful in cars with centrally mounted fuel gauges where the position of the gauge itself doesn't hint at the cap's location. This tiny design element solves a minor but universal problem, demonstrating how thoughtful engineering addresses even small frustrations. That little triangle has probably saved millions of drivers from awkward gas station maneuvering. 39. The ridges on the edge of a bottle cap, usually 21 or 22, were designed in the 1890s to create airtight pressure seals. According to U.S. Patent Office records, these ridges, called knurling, serve multiple purposes. They provide grip for fingers when twisting the cap off, especially with wet or oily hands. More importantly, when the cap is crimped onto a bottle during manufacturing, the ridges create slight deformations in the metal that enhance the seal against the bottle's lip. The specific number of ridges became standardized through manufacturing convenience and compatibility with bottling machinery. Different companies settled on similar counts because their equipment worked optimally with those dimensions. The ridges also make caps stackable and prevent them from rolling, useful in manufacturing and packaging processes. Modern plastic caps maintain the ridge design partly for tradition and partly because consumers associate that texture with the action of opening a bottle. That tactile feedback, developed over a century ago for mechanical sealing purposes, has become so ingrained in product interaction that removing it would feel wrong, even though modern sealing technology doesn't strictly require it. 40. The Starbucks mermaid has two tails because she's based on a Melusine, a medieval European water spirit. The British Museum's Cultural Archives explain that Melusines are legendary creatures from European folklore, often depicted as beautiful women with twin fishtails. According to the mythology, Melusines were associated with water, fertility, and occasionally seduction or enchantment. When Starbucks founders chose their logo in 1971, they were inspired by maritime history and the seafaring tradition of coffee trading. They found a 16th-century Norse woodcut of a siren with a split tail and adapted it as their symbol. Over the years, the logo has been progressively simplified, zooming in on the mermaid's face and stylizing the details, but the twin tails remain visible in the current design if you look closely. Most customers see a mermaid or siren and don't question the anatomical details. The choice connects coffee culture to maritime exploration and the exotic origins of coffee beans, all encoded in a figure from medieval mythology. It's branding that draws on ancient storytelling, hiding centuries of folklore in the symbol you see on every cup. 41. Keyboard F and J keys have small bumps to help you find the home row by touch, a holdover from 19th century typewriter design. According to the Smithsonian Institution, these tactile markers allow touch typists to position their index fingers correctly without looking at the keyboard. The home row is the neutral position where fingers rest, with left index on F and right index on J. From there, trained typists can reach all other keys by muscle memory and spatial awareness. The bumps were added to typewriters in the late 1800s as typing education became standardized. Before computers, professional typists often worked in dim offices or looked at source documents while typing, making these tactile guides essential for speed and accuracy. The feature transferred to computer keyboards and has remained standard for over a century, even though many modern users never learn proper touch typing technique. Those who do rely on these small raised markers every time they sit at a keyboard. They're tiny navigational anchors in a sea of identical keys, allowing skilled users to maintain finger position without conscious thought or visual confirmation. 42. The extra eyelets on sneakers aren't for decoration. They're for a heel lock lacing method that prevents blisters. Nike Innovation Archives document this feature, sometimes called the lace lock or runner's loop. The extra hole near the top of many athletic shoes allows you to create a loop on each side, then thread the opposite lace through each loop before tying. This technique tightens the heel cup independently from the rest of the shoe, preventing your heel from sliding up and down inside the shoe during activity. Heel slippage is a primary cause of blisters for runners and athletes, as the repeated friction creates hot spots. By locking the heel in place, this lacing method dramatically reduces movement and increases stability. Most casual shoe wearers never use these eyelets, leaving them unused or threading laces straight through them like any other hole. Serious runners and athletes who discover this technique often wonder how they ever ran without it. It's functional design waiting patiently to solve a problem for those who encounter it. Invisible and unused by everyone else who never experiences heel slippage severe enough to seek a solution. 43. The recycling symbol's 3 arrows form a Mobius strip, a single continuous loop representing sustainability. Designed in 1970 by Gary Anderson for a contest sponsored by the U.S. Container Corporation, the symbol uses 3 twisted arrows chasing each other in a triangle. The Mobius strip is a mathematical surface with only one side and one edge, created by giving a strip of paper a half twist and joining the ends. This represents the continuous cycle of materials, collection, recycling, and manufacturing into new products, which are eventually collected again. The 3 arrows also symbolize the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. Anderson was a senior at the University of Southern California when he created the design, and it quickly became the international symbol for recyclable materials. The genius lies in its simplicity, the concept of endless cycling embodied in a shape that literally has no beginning or end. Billions of people see this symbol on packaging, bins, and products without consciously recognizing the mathematical elegance of the Mobius topology encoded within it. Its advanced geometry serving as everyday iconography. 44. The numbers on toaster dials don't always represent minutes. They often refer to heat intensity levels, varying by brand. According to Consumer Reports testing, toaster settings are notoriously inconsistent across manufacturers. Some brands calibrate their dials in rough time estimates, where 3 might mean approximately 3 minutes of heating. Others use arbitrary scales where higher numbers simply mean more heat applied for a standard duration. Still others use algorithms that combine time and temperature in proprietary ways. Factors like bread moisture, thickness, and starting temperature affect results, making consistent toasting difficult even with the same setting. Cheaper toasters often use simple bimetallic strips that bend with heat to pop the toast, meaning timing varies with room temperature and usage frequency. Higher-end models may have electronic timing or sensors, but even these aren't perfectly consistent. The result is that 3 on one toaster produces wildly different results than 3 on another, and the same setting can vary based on whether the toaster is already warm. Those numbers on your toaster dial are suggestions at best, requiring trial and error to find your perfect toast regardless of what the numbers promise. 45. Elevators have tiny holes above floor buttons. These are keyholes used by firefighters to manually override floor stops. According to the National Fire Protection Association, these keyhole access points allow emergency personnel to take control of elevator operations during fires or other emergencies. Firefighters can insert a special key to activate Phase 1 emergency recall, which brings the elevator to a designated floor and opens the doors, then prevents anyone else from using it. Phase 2 operation allows firefighters to manually control the elevator with the doors open, using it strategically during emergency operations. This override system exists because elevators can become death traps during fires, with smoke-filling shafts and power failures stranding occupants. The keyholes are deliberately subtle to prevent tampering while remaining accessible to trained responders. Most building occupants pass these tiny holes thousands of times without recognizing their purpose. They represent a hidden layer of emergency infrastructure, silent until the moment they're desperately needed. That small keyhole is essentially a back door into the building's transportation system, reserved for those who run toward danger while others evacuate. 46. The red margin lines in notebooks weren't originally for teachers' comments. They were added to protect notes from rats and mice. In centuries past, when paper was expensive and handwritten documents were irreplaceable, rodents posed a serious threat to records and correspondence. Rats and mice would gnaw on paper edges where they could easily bite and tear, destroying important information stored in ledgers, journals, and documents. Paper manufacturers began adding margin lines to mark a safe zone where people should stop writing, ensuring that even if rats ate the edges during storage, the actual content remained intact and legible. The red color was deliberately chosen because it stands out sharply against blue writing lines and black ink, making the boundary impossible to miss even in dim lighting. According to paper manufacturing archives, this practice became standardized in the 19th century and persisted long after rat-proof storage became common. Today, we use margins for organizational purposes and teacher feedback, but those red lines originally represented a buffer zone between your important notes and hungry rodents. It's pest control disguised as stationary design, protecting information in an era when rewriting destroyed documents wasn't a simple matter of printing another copy. 47. Gas pump handles have small latches that automatically release when the tank is full, triggered by a pressure sensor near the nozzle. According to the U.S. Energy Department, this auto shut-off mechanism prevents overflow and dangerous spills. The nozzle contains a small tube that monitors air pressure. As gasoline fills your tank, the rising fuel eventually blocks this tube. The sudden pressure change triggers a diaphragm mechanism that automatically releases the latch holding the handle open. This happens regardless of pump setting or dispensing speed, making it a reliable safety feature. The clicking sound you hear is the latch releasing, shutting off fuel flow almost instantly. Some people try to pump more fuel after auto shutoff, but this typically just fills the vapor space meant for expansion, potentially causing overflow when fuel warms and expands. The system has been standard on pumps since the 1950s and has prevented countless spills and potential fire hazards. Most drivers take this automatic shutoff for granted, never questioning how the pump knows their tank is full. It's a beautifully simple pneumatic system using pressure physics to create a mechanical response that protects both customers and environment. 48. Wooden coat hangers aren't just fancier versions of plastic ones. Cedar wood naturally repels moths and absorbs moisture to protect expensive garments. Cedar contains aromatic oils, particularly cedrol and thujone, that moths find deeply repellent, effectively making wooden hangers functional pest control living inside your closet. The Textile Preservation Society documents that these Natural compounds interfere with moths' ability to smell and locate the keratin in wool and other natural fibers they typically feed on. Beyond pest deterrence, cedar wood absorbs excess moisture from the air, helping prevent mildew and musty odors that can develop in closed closets, particularly in humid climates. The wood also maintains its shape under weight far better than wire or thin plastic, helping preserve the shoulder lines and structure of jackets, coats, and suits over years of hanging. High-end clothing stores and dry cleaners use cedar hangers not merely for aesthetics or perceived luxury, but because they genuinely extend the lifespan of expensive garments through multiple protective mechanisms. That pleasant woody scent isn't just ambiance, it's chemical warfare against the insects that would otherwise feast on your wool sweaters. Those seemingly decorative wooden hangers represent centuries of understanding about natural pest control and fabric preservation. 49. Most office ceiling tiles are acoustically engineered to absorb specific sound frequencies that match human speech. According to the Acoustical Society of America, standard ceiling tiles contain thousands of tiny holes and porous materials designed to trap sound waves in the frequency range of 500–4,000 Hz, where human voices concentrate. Sound waves enter the holes, bounce around inside the porous material, and convert to tiny amounts of heat through friction, removing acoustic energy from the room. This prevents excessive echo and reverberation that make offices uncomfortable and conversation difficult. The tiles are tested and rated with a noise reduction coefficient that indicates what percentage of sound they absorb. Higher quality tiles might absorb 70–80% of sound at speech frequencies while still reflecting lower frequencies, creating balanced acoustics. The visible texture isn't decorative. Those patterns reflect the acoustic engineering beneath. Without these tiles, offices would be echo chambers where every keyboard, click, and conversation would bounce endlessly off hard surfaces. Those boring white squares overhead represent sophisticated materials, science, and acoustic engineering, quietly making your work environment bearable by absorbing the chaos of sound happening all around you. 50. The Nike swoosh logo cost just $35 when designed by a college student in 1971. Phil Knight initially said, "I don't love it, but it'll grow on me." Today, it's one of the world's most recognizable symbols. Nike corporate archives reveal that Knight, co-founder of Nike, hired graphic design student Carolyn Davidson to create a logo that suggested movement and speed. She presented several options, and Knight chose the swoosh despite being underwhelmed, primarily because they needed something immediately for an upcoming deadline. The $35 fee was calculated at her hourly rate for the roughly 17 hours she spent on the project. The swoosh is meant to evoke the wing of Nike, the Greek goddess of victory, while suggesting motion and dynamism. It became so iconic that Nike eventually began using it without the company name, confident the symbol alone conveyed the brand. In 1983, Knight gave Davidson stock and a diamond ring in recognition that her contribution had been vastly undercompensated. That simple checkmark shape became worth billions in brand equity, demonstrating that transformative creative work isn't always immediately recognized even by those commissioning it. Sometimes genius is apparent only in retrospect, after time and repetition have proven its power. And there you have it. Facts hidden in plain sight, revealing the intention, history, and clever engineering woven into everyday objects we encounter without a second thought. Hopefully, you'll never see the world quite the same way again. That arrow in the FedEx logo, those bumps on your keyboard, the rounded airplane windows, they're all speaking to you now, telling stories of the people who designed them and the problems they solved. The ordinary has become extraordinary through understanding. If you enjoyed this journey through hidden facts, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more content that reveals the fascinating side of everyday life. Drop a comment below with your favorite fact from tonight. I'd love to know which discovery surprised you most, or which design detail you'll never be able to unsee. Thanks so much for spending this time exploring with me. Until next time, keep looking closer at the world around you. You never know what secrets are hiding in plain sight.